The night the elves came. Once upon a time there lived a shoemaker. He lived in a cottage at the end of a village. His shoes were not well made and so nobody bought them. He became very poor and his wife was unhappy. He had only enough leather left to make one pair of shoes. He decided to leave the leather pieces on the table and complete it in the next day. Next morning, the shoemaker went down to his stable. He was shocked and surprised. There was a fine pair of shoes on the table. The shoes were so beautiful and well made that a rich man who was passing by saw them and paid double the usual price of it. The shoemaker was very happy. He bought enough leather to make 2 pairs of shoes. He cut it and left it on the table. He felt very tired and went to bed. Next morning he came down rubbing his sleepy eyes and yawning. He couldn't believe his eyes. The magic had happened again. There were 2 fine pair of shoes. He ran to his wife and asked her if she knew anything about the 2 pair of shoes. She said that she had no idea about it. These pairs of shoes were sold quickly. The shoemaker and his wife were very happy now. This happened night after night. Soon the shoemaker was quite rich and happy. One night the shoemaker and his wife hid behind the curtain to find out who was making the shoes. Around midnight, 2 little elves came creeping in quietly. The little elves worked hard at night, stitching, hammering and making the shoes. As the dawn came, they flew out of the windows singing merrily. The shoemaker and his wife decided to thank them and make little clothes and shoes for them. They set to work and made 2 neat pairs of clothes and shoes for the elves. The wife folded the clothes neatly and left them on the table. The night the elves came creeping silently into the room, but there was no leather on the table, but a pile of clothing and little shoes, just the right size for them. The elves were overjoyed. They wore their clothes and danced and sang on the table in delight. The elves flew out of the window, never to be seen again. As for the shoemaker and his wife, they had learned to make fine pair of shoes and could now live in comfort. They lived happily ever after. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Now get ready, all of you. Take your textbook, page number 39. Page number 39. So, Lesson 6, the night the elves came. Lesson 6, the night the elves came. Okay. Once upon a time, there lived a shoemaker. He lived in a cottage at the end of a village. So, once upon a time, there lived a shoemaker. Shoemaker means the person who was making shoes is called as shoemaker. And he lived in a cottage. Cottage means a small hut. He lived in a small hut in the village. His shoes were not well made and so nobody bought them. His shoes was not that good. So nobody bought his shoes. Note down the word bought. What is the antonym opposite of that word bought? Bought, to buy. Then bought means yes. Opposite of the word bought is sold. Okay, so his shoes are not that good. So nobody bought his shoes. Then turn the page. He became very poor and his wife was unhappy. Thus the shoemaker was very poor because no one was buying his shoes, and his wife was very sad because they don't have any money to buy food and they are very poor. I now have only enough leather left to make 1 pair of shoes. So at that night the shoemaker was saying, I have only few leather left with me. So, I am tired now. So he kept that leather in the table and he slept. Then I will leave the leather pieces on the table, complete it the next day. Then he was tired and he was sleepy. Then he kept the piece of leather in the table and he slept. Next morning, the shoemaker went down to his stable. He couldn't believe his eyes. Then next day, when he gone near his stable, he was surprised. He can't believe. What happened? Yes, there is a fine pair of shoes on the table. How is this even possible? This is a wonderful surprise indeed. Yes, in that table, he saw a fine pair of a good pair of shoes. Somebody made a pair of shoes with that leather that he left in that table last night. And by seeing that good pair of shoes, he was really surprised. He was really happy. Then, the shoes were so beautiful and well made that a rich man who was passing by saw them and paid double usual price for it. Then he brought that shoe to his shop, and a rich man brought that for double rate. Then the family, the shoemaker and his wife was really happy. They got some money. Then the shoemaker was very happy. I have bought enough leather to make 2 pair of shoes. I have cut it now and I will stitch the shoes tomorrow. Then with that money he brought some leather, and he again cut that leather into 2 pieces, and he kept that usual. Likewise he done in the previous day. He kept that leather in that table and he gone to sleep. Then he felt very tired, went to bed. He was really tired and he went to bed. Next morning he came down rubbing his sleepy eyes and yawning. Yawning, underline that word. Yawning means to open your mouth wide and breathe in deeply. Open your mouth and breathe in deeply. Why he did so? Yes. The next day when he woke up from his sleep, he was really surprised. Again, he was surprised. Why? It has happened again. There was 2 fine pairs of shoes on the table. Likewise, the previous day in the table, he saw again 2 pairs of good shoes in his table. Then by seeing that shoes again, the shoemaker was really excited and he was happy. Tell me honestly, have you been working at night when I was sleeping? Then the shoemaker was asking to his wife that, tell me the truth. You made these fine pair of shoes, right? While I was sleeping, you made these, right? Then the wife replied, no, I have no idea how these pairs of shoes were made. Then the wife replied, the shoemaker, that no, I don't know how to make these kind of shoes. I don't do this. These pair of shoes were sold quickly. The shoemaker and his wife were very happy now. This happened night after night. Soon the shoemaker was quite rich and happy. And that shoe also sold quickly, and quite nature they became that. The shoemaker and his wife got few money, and at last they became rich. They got money, they can buy food, everything they want. And they are rich now. One night the shoemaker and his wife hid behind the curtain to find out who was making the shoes. Then one night the shoemaker and his wife decided to find out who was making these shoes for us. Then they decided to hid near their curtain. So students, can you see who was making that fine pair of shoes for that poor family? Can you say any guess? Okay, all of you just think about that. So that's all for today. Bye.